Now, do you have a brilliant business idea that could make your fortune? James Caan is one of the UK's most successful entrepreneurs and has written a new book called Start Your Business in 7 Days for absolutely anyone with a good idea. You don't need to be a business genius. James, very warm welcome to the programme. How are you?
Good morning. Very well indeed. Very well indeed.
I just want to ask you what advice there was for you when you started out. Where did you get your advice from?
I think for me, I was lucky because my father was an entrepreneur himself. And, I think it was good for me to kind of watch somebody else, become a businessman. So I had somebody to follow. So I think for me, there was a fortunate factor. There was somebody around that could guide me. And I think what I found over the years is a lot of people who don't have that kind of mentor, who don't have that idea of or inspiration, and I think a lot of them go through that question about, am I even an entrepreneur? And I think that's really what kind of inspired me to write the book, which was, to give somebody or share with them some of the lessons that I learned, which was, the first step before you even start is, am I really an entrepreneur? And how do you make that decision? So I think the book goes through, quite a lot of detail in kind of helping somebody even ask the most basic question, is it really for me?
James, what's your father's story? Where did he set out in business?
My father came to the UK in the early 60s and started a business which was, in those days, the concept of leather garments had just become fashionable with the Beatles and, the kind of swinging 60s. And he started manufacturing leather garments and, actually did very well. It's one of those situations where he found a niche in the market. He found a product where the concept of leather, essentially the 60s was more of an industrial material, whereas in the 60s, you had tassel jackets, safari jackets, trench macs, and, he was one of the first people in the 60s to start manufacturing those, into the high street.
I wonder, did he go into his business, though, thinking, I am going to be an entrepreneur, or did he think, I need to earn some money for my family, this is what I'm going to do?
I think there's an element of both, really, because I think what I certainly learned from him was the recognition that if, it's a bit like winning the lottery, you've got to buy the ticket first. I think my father knew he wanted to have just, something more than the average, and I think he wanted to give, his family the best that he could, and he wanted, the things that we can do to enjoy life. And the problem is you can't do that, you can't experience that if you've got a limit on what you can earn and how successful you can be. So I think he always fundamentally believed that he wanted to be in charge of his own destiny. He wanted to be in a position where he can control, what he could achieve in terms of success. So I think that was the one key message that made me realise that actually, that at least when you're an entrepreneur, if it doesn't work out, you've only got yourself to blame, but at least you have the opportunity where you can become incredibly successful.
So many parents sit down with their children, James, and say, look, the thing is, in order to be successful, what you need to do is to stay in school and get your GCSEs and, get your A-levels and then go to university. I mean, you contradicted all of that. You dropped out of school at 16, didn't you?
I did indeed, and it's really strange because even though I dropped out of school at 16, I've become a parent now. And, I have two daughters. And, I'm sitting there encouraging both of them to complete their education, go to university, get good degrees. And, of course, they look at me and they say, but, Dad, with all due respect, it was okay for you. You did okay. And what I share with them, and I'm really proud of the fact that they have continued on and they've gone to university and they've got exceptionally good degrees, is, business is a bit of a risk. And what happens if it doesn't work? What have you got to fall back on? Now, I was fortunate enough that it did work for me. And we know that 90% of businesses that start don't make it. And what happens if you've got no education, you've got no foundation to fall back on? And I think as a responsible parent, you've got to give your child, the best start in life. So I think I would say that I think it's important to complete your education and get, a good platform because A, intellectually, I think it helps with the business. And B, you've got something to fall back on.
Lorraine in Pembrokeshire is listening to us this morning, James. She's been in touch already asking you a question. She says, is it always better to try to come up with a brand new business idea, or is it okay, do you think, James, to duplicate and build on existing offers? I guess, she says, I'm wondering whether he feels it's usually better to have what's termed as a first mover advantage or not. That's a business term, is it?
It is indeed. And let me say, Lorraine, that's an exceptionally good question, because I do actually spend a lot of time in the book on that specific point, because I believe that to come up with something completely unique, completely original, is very difficult. And what I've certainly learned in my life, and I've met so many really successful entrepreneurs, that actually a lot of the people who I meet are really successful don't originate something from scratch. They don't start with a completely unique idea. What they tend to do is look at something that already exists, and they find a way of just doing it better, cheaper, or faster. So if you, for example, take EasyJet, Stelios didn't invent the airline industry. He didn't invent the aeroplane. All he did is he took an idea that already existed. He just did it cheaper and faster and better. Nowadays, using the internet, what you can do, you can literally start a business for less than £10,000 and actually make, a very tidy sum. And I think what the book is really designed to do is we're not looking for the next Richard Branson or the next Google, but to give, somebody the opportunity to first of all establish, is it even for me? Which I think is a really important question. Is the idea that I've got, is it a hobby? Is it passion? Or is it really a business? And should I really be doing this? And I think so many people I met at Dragon's Den, where I met nearly over 1,000 entrepreneurs, I think that's where they found it the hardest to say, is it really for me? How do I find this next idea? Because I think when you take something, and even if you take me as an example, the first business I launched was a recruitment business. Now, when I started that business, I didn't invent the industry. There was nothing unique in what I did, because there was already 1,000 recruitment businesses out there. I just found a way of doing it differently to how the market was doing, and I found a kind of a unique aspect to an existing business. And I think they are far more realistic ways of starting a business, because you don't have to educate a market on your idea.
James, you went to Harvard Business School, didn't you, in 2003?
I did indeed, at the age of 42.
I was going to say, that
it's
sense...
never too late.
Well, we're constantly being told that, aren't we? That, it's never too late, and education will be a sort of weaving part of our lives in the new economy in the 21st century. Certainly true for you. It must have been a huge culture shock going back into education later in life.
No, it was. You imagine at the age of 42, all of a sudden I've got to hang up my pinstripe suits into jeans and sweatshirts, and all of a sudden literally back in a classroom. But I did honestly find that, the difference in the economy today, I just think that computerization has changed and revolutionized the way we do business today. And I think, in order to understand how, if you look at the concept of social media, the way we market a business today versus what we used to do when I started a business was simply about advertising. You advertise your product, in newspapers or magazines. Now you can do it on Twitter, Facebook, you can connect through LinkedIn, you can use your website, you can use Google Analytics. It's just a whole different industry. And I found that even at that age of my life, going back to school did give me a different way to see how businesses could or should be run, in today's economy.
It's an interesting point about education and entrepreneurship in terms of schools. I wonder what you think about whether entrepreneurship can be taught, and should it be taught, and should it be encouraged at a much younger age here in the UK at school?
I think there's no question, because I think Britain today, I absolutely believe with passion that we are a nation of shopkeepers. I think in Dragon's Den, the one thing that I learned, literally there are thousands and thousands of people who every day, think about, should I run my own business? Should I go out and start on my own? So there is no question. And I think that the issue is, it's knowledge, it's experience, it's understanding. Should I do this? Could I do this? Is this right for me? And I think we should make entrepreneurship as exciting, as fruitful as being an accountant or a doctor. Because to me right now, if you look at Britain as a country, the one thing we desperately need, I think more than anything else, is we need jobs. And I think entrepreneurship are people who start businesses, and people who start businesses, start employing people, and we create opportunities and we create jobs. And therefore, the more we can encourage people to look at this as a viable option, as a viable career, I think the better for the individual, the better for the economy, and I think better for society generally, because we've got today over 1 million young people who are not working. And I'd love for young people to be looking at this and saying, maybe I should start my own business, because using technology today, using the web, using cloud computing means you can virtually start with so little money today. The one thing that's so different about starting businesses today than it was when I started is literally you can honestly do it for next to nothing.
You write in the book, James, that 90% of new businesses are still failing. I mean, if that's true, it's a very, very sad thing to write. And we see so often in the newspapers the story of failed businesses right across the country. Is there a commonality as to why they fail? I mean, can you put your finger on it? And it is such a shame that people can't be told earlier on why they're going wrong, isn't it?
I think you're right. And I think when I was writing the book, I was going through my own career, and I've backed a number of businesses that haven't worked. I've invested in businesses where I've lost my money. And I absolutely believe that you can avoid failure. But the key issue is knowing how to do it. What are the signs you should be looking for? How can you anticipate something going wrong? And when I've reflected back on the mistakes that I made, I did realize that I could have done it differently, which means I could have avoided failure. So, to me, one of the key drivers in writing the book is I would love to see not 90% of businesses failing, but 90% of businesses should be succeeding. And I think what the book really goes into a lot of detail in explaining is what do you have to do to improve your chances and improve the odds on it working. Because I passionately believe that entrepreneurship is not something you are naturally born with. It is something you can develop. It's something you can learn. It's something you can study. Because people say to me, but I need to take a risk. To me, a risk is only a risk when you don't understand it. But if I can show you how to analyze and evaluate the risk, it means it no longer becomes a risk.
And what about, in talking of risk, it would be a brave person that would start a business in this economic climate, do you think? Or is this a good time to start?
I find always that in difficult market conditions, there are far better chances of starting a business. And I think if you look at literally most of the people who are recognized and well-known successful entrepreneurs, coincidentally, most of them started in a recession. So I think when difficult times happen, it inspires us to do something we otherwise probably wouldn't do. And I think right now is probably as good time as any, because I think it's something the government is happily supporting. You've got a new loan guarantee scheme out there where if you want to start a business, you go to the bank. If the bank likes the idea, the government will actually guarantee the loan. So I think there are so many more advantages and opportunities, whether it's from funding, whether it's from government, whether it's initiatives, with support groups, forum groups, the internet. There's so much more information available. There's so many more books available. So I think if ever there was a time to do it, there's no question in my mind, now is as good as any time to want to become an entrepreneur.
OK, we're putting you on the spot now. Howard Parry is listening to Radio Wales and Aberystwyth. James, I've invented something for the caravan industry, new on the market, definitely nothing else like it out there. I put a patent and research applications in and had models made, but I can't get a manufacturer to take it on. How do I deal with this and take it further?
I mean, what I would say is before... And I think, again, that, this is a subject that I cover a huge amount of detail in the book on, which is, before you go off manufacturing, before you start investing a huge amount of time and energy, the one thing, I'm so passionate about is before you do that, I think you should go and test the market first. So rather than be looking for a manufacturer, I would be out there trying to find potential customers who are prepared to give me a letter of intent with an order. Because I think with technology today, with computerization, you can demonstrate 3D graphics showing your idea and your concept. Because the one thing that the book goes into a lot of detail on is if you go through that entire journey where you come up with the idea, you prototype it, you patent it, you find the manufacturer, you create molds, you spend tens of thousands of pounds only to find at the end there's no market for the product, only to find at the end that you can make it, but you can make it for a price that the market won't pay. So at which point, unfortunately, you've lost all of your money. So what I'm a passionate believer in is I would rather spend the time and energy finding the customer that says, if you can produce this for me at this price, I'm committed to placing an order. Because I don't mind investing the money as long as I know that I've got an order at the end. What I probably wouldn't want to do is spend, a year of my life, my entire life savings, and then find at the end that actually there's no market for the product.
Howard, good luck with yours. Thank you very much for getting in touch.
What about the subject of failure, James? And we've talked already about this 90% of new businesses still failing. All of us in any walk of life have failures and have disasters. Is that important for an entrepreneur in terms of experience?
I wouldn't use the word important. I would use the word crucial, because to me, failure is part of the journey of success. The one thing that I think I was very, very fortunate was when I was growing up is my father made me believe that, failure is just a process. It doesn't mean you're no good. It doesn't mean you can't do it again. What it means is that sometimes, in order to succeed, you have to fail a number of times. And to me, I think in Britain, we just don't understand failure well enough. One of the great lessons that I learned, in fact, reading somebody else's book, was when McDonald's started, the guy who invented and launched McDonald's was 63 years old. And for me, there was a really interesting lesson there that said, how many times must he have failed during his career at 63? The one thing that obviously kept him going was the belief that his first idea probably wasn't his best idea, but the fact that he accepted failure and knew how to address failure meant that he still continued, and at the ripe old age of 63 eventually found the idea that today has become the world's largest food business. Now, to me, that's a really important lesson, that if you are out there and you're looking to start a business, just because the first idea doesn't work, it doesn't mean you're no good. What it means is the first one probably wasn't right, but what you've got to be able to do is do it in a way that gives you the opportunity to come back and fight another day.
James, lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much for coming on the programme, and good luck with a new book. James Caan, and the book is called Start Your Business in 7 Days.